Wuchang Fallen Feathers. I've been playing this for about a good few hours now, and I'm really enjoying it, strangely so, because I didn't anticipate I would be enjoying it as much as I have been. It really scratches that itch, so to speak, and I'm gonna, put a pinch of salt on this because it's early days. I think with a game like this, you need to put a significant amount of hours in to really get a feeling of what it is, all of its systems that it holds, and essentially just making out if it's a sustainable experience. So this is going to be a bit tethered in terms of my ultimate experience. Obviously, it's not that many hours in. It's going to be a few hours experience, but so far it's been fantastic for me. And a lot of that ties into a variety of different elements, which I'm going to touch upon now. So first of all, one thing that really stood out for me in Wuchang Fallen Feathers is the audio. And what I really like is the ambient soundtrack when you're in the, not necessarily open world, but maybe it is, to be fair, because I've not gotten that far to even consider it whether it is open world. But to be fair, with these games, they're like semi-open world. They're not necessarily open world experiences. Now, more so back to the point of what I was going to say is that ambience, the soundtrack that is going on when you are in the open world, it really encapsulates this ancient Chinese environment. And as you can see through the video itself, the actual visual experience of that ancient Chinese environment. Well, I'm an expert on this, but it really does put you in that experience. And sometimes that can be forgotten in games, as in it's an experience first, and then you're obviously playing the game as a gameplay experience, but you want to be put into that kind of environment where you feel like you're actually there, and then you bring in your systems and your gameplay experience from there. So for me, from that perspective, I think it's been excellent, and it's really put me into this world. One thing that I can compare it to, and one game in particular I can compare it to, is Black Myth Wukong. And with that sometimes felt a bit limited in its environment. So there's a lot of invisible walls there that really just took you away. And the way that this game is put across to you, it doesn't necessarily limit you. Now, don't get me wrong, there are invisible walls, but it's funneling you in a direction that you want to go. Whereas Black Myth Wukong, that would almost give you an environmental like space that would invite you, but then would be blocked off. Whereas this, in the places that it doesn't want you to go into, it doesn't necessarily give you that invitation to go there, and therefore you're not being taken out of the experience. You're being pushed forward into the experience that the developers, I think, intended for you to go into. I don't know, I've kind of gone across into different kind of subject there because I'm speaking around the audio and how the environment makes you feel, but in that side of things, we also got to tie in the presentation element, right? Now, presentation and performance are two things that I believe go hand in hand, and although they sound like slightly different elements, it does have an impact. So just touching on the presentation, I think it looks great in terms of creating an environment of ancient mythology and ancient China, which I'm going to go out on a limb, and understanding that developers are Chinese, that this environment is an ancient Chinese environment, and it does take you there, right? It gives me that experience where I feel like I'm actually here and not necessarily just like, oh, it's a game. I'm actually invested in this environment and place. Now the performance, which ties into that, it is hit and miss sometimes. I've had to tweak some of the settings. Of course, on PC, you're always going to tweak some of the settings. And just to touch on that, I have been playing it through Xbox Game Pass, through the PC, so PC Game Pass essentially. Performance has been, I mean, initially it was a little bit jarring with a few tweaks, in particular FSR enabled, and that has kind of enhanced what was a poor performance beforehand, but it does have choppy performance at times, and that can kind of lift you out of the game at times. Not all the time, but at times. So that is something to consider with this, especially when you're purchasing it. This is through Game Pass. Although I've purchased Game Pass, it's not necessarily a one outlay of £40, £50, whatever your currency is, it's not hurting me as much, so to speak, when it looks at performance. But that's something to consider. Now, in terms of the gameplay, I think with this, I'm really enjoying the gameplay. So you've got your, it's not necessarily, well, it is technically a light attack and a heavy attack, right? You can see at the top, at the left hand side of the screen. And I'm showing this gameplay because it's essentially the early hours of the game, which is still not completely hand holding you, but it's got a little hand holding in there. As you can see, it's got the little options on the left hand side, just giving you the understanding of what buttons are what. And so far it has opened up a few mechanics. So we've got your general physical attacks there. You can see on the screen I'm fighting this boss, which is essentially the Master Raider. He is the first main boss. I think he's more so deemed like a tutorial, ender tutorial boss, so to speak. It's not technically a tutorial, and it's not been labeled as a tutorial in the game, but I got the feeling it was, just with the way that the gameplay mechanics have been developing and opening up towards me. It's giving me that impression there. And you can see me dying a few times. I mean, this is that first difficulty jump that is throwing at you there, and you're going to be dying, but that's the part where you're going to have to overcome that difficulty in order to get a better understanding of the gameplay mechanics and utilize them wholeheartedly and to the best of really what it's offering here. Now you've got your light attack, your heavy attack, which I mentioned. You have got almost like an ability attack, whereas if you dodge in time, you can see there, you dodge in time, you generate almost a little ability each time, which you can then use across different special attacks that you've got. So you've got your left trigger and your left bumper, or L1 and L2. I played on the Xbox Elite controller, which I found helps, especially with the back paddles. You've got those abilities where you can do an enhanced attack or an enhanced evasive maneuver, or you've got an ability to use magic, which introduces a little bit into the game, which is being used with a Y button here, and you can see it's quite overpowered, to be fair, and I'd start to utilize it a lot more whilst incorporating that dodge mechanic here. And in using it, I was able to take down this boss significantly easier than the physical attacks that I was doing with the sword. Sometimes I switched it up with the spear, but I was mainly utilizing the sword essentially, and to be fair, I kind of abused the magic ability along with the dodge there. See, I tried to utilize the spear there, it backfired, and I died here because that just backfired completely, that special move that I tried to do there. So you've got those elements of the combat, as I've mentioned, and when you combine them, the game wants you to be aggressive and it wants you to be on the front foot. That's the feeling I got, because when I was trying to be defensive against this boss, it wasn't necessarily working because I needed to inflict more damage, and therefore what was happening for me and what I understood is the more I was being the aggressor, the more damage I was inflicting, which I know it sounds really obvious, like, well, of course, if you're going to be attacking more, you're going to be doing more damage, but it didn't punish you for being aggressive. Of course, you had to utilize, I had to utilize my dodging and things like that, but I wasn't necessarily punished for being the aggressor, and that's what encouraged me to be the aggressor. Alongside that, it has a stun mechanic, so to speak. I know we've got different terminology for that in these types of games, but if you inflict enough damage, you can see the meter building up, that small circle just at the chest level of the boss. When that builds up and fills up completely, you're going to stun the boss, and you can inflict like a more powerful attack, which will obviously do more damage to the boss there. So that's something to consider as well. Now, all in all, my first impressions of this game are that it's fantastic game. I know it's at a reduced price as well, and if you got Game Pass, that's an added bonus. It's also included in there, and I think it's something that I am going to play more because it gives me that vibe and that feeling of being in this world. I know I've said that in the last two videos, but ultimately that's what you want in a game. You want it to put you in that experience and have fun gameplay mechanics, and Wuchang Fallen Feathers really does have that. And so I'm going to continue playing this. I'd like to keep playing this for the sake of just having a good time, really. It's got really fun mechanics. It's not the deepest mechanics, but then again, it could expand further because I'm early on. So I'm going to hold that thought, see what else it holds, and ultimately I'm going to keep playing this game. So I hope you guys enjoy it as well. If you're playing it, if you are playing it, let me know what you think of it, and I'll leave it at this for now.